You know, franchising might be the shortest shortcut to real business ownership. Now, in this episode, we're going to dive deep into how franchising opens up new doors for entrepreneurs, why franchise consulting is booming, and the smart moves that turn dreams into reality.
Welcome to Fortify Live with your host, Ford Saeks.
Welcome to Fortify Live. Joining me today is Alicia Visconti. She's the CEO and President of FranServe, the world's largest franchise consulting network. Now, she's a force in the franchise world. She's a top influencer recognized in Inc. magazine and the author of The Pink Tsunami. I want to learn more about that. Women's Rise in Franchising. Now, Alicia's mission is helping people achieve their dreams of business ownership. Alicia, welcome to today's episode of Fortify.
Well, thank you so much, Ford. I am thrilled to be here. I appreciate you asking me.
Well, I always start with the same question with a lot of our guests. I get experts like you that carve out a little bit of time for me. And, you know, our listeners are on our franchisees, franchisors, private equity groups. We have a lot of entrepreneurs and other business people, and they're always interested in the four areas, finance, accounting, marketing, and sales. And with all of your experience, tell me a little bit about how did you get into franchising and how did you get to the role you're in now?
Yeah, it's one of those crazy stories that, you listen to it and you're like, that can't really have happened. But, things happen, right, in life that are exciting. So I have never been in franchising before. So I joke that I knew how to spell it. And that was my entire knowledge to franchising throughout my career. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've owned businesses and I've been president and CEO. But my last organization was involved with corporate America and helping executives climb the corporate ladder. And I was very happy there. Corporate and I were very good friends. And I had about 250 people working with me. We loved it. I did it for a number of years. And then, age discrimination started really getting heavy, and women coming back from maternity leave were pretty much invisible. Veterans too, when they came off their tour of duty. So corporate America and I, we weren't the best of friends at that point. And I did what everybody does and no one admits. I knew I wanted to do something different to help our clients. So I went to Google. I just started putting in words and helping and careers and business. I don't know. Somehow franchise consulting came up. And I said, what the heck is that? I never heard of that. So I started exploring that. And so I became a consultant. I became a broker for FranServe. And I did that for a couple of years, loved it, helped people become franchise owners. I really enjoyed it. And then our founder, Tim, he was older. He wanted to retire. So 2 years into it, he approached me and said, how would you like to acquire my baby? And it took me about 3 seconds to say yes. And in a month, I owned it.
Well, congratulations.
Crazy story. So, but that's the truth. That's how it happened.
Well, I'm kind of similar. I mean, I was an entrepreneur since I was 15 years old, and I grew lots of businesses up. And I always did it the hard way, and I had to reinvent the wheel every time I started something. And then people started asking me how I did it, because I grew a couple companies up to 8 figures, and then people started asking me how I did it. And then I started to go to speak. And then I got into the world of franchising, became a franchisee. I was a franchisor. And I got to see both sides of the table. And now for the last, 30 years, all I've done is work with business owners to help them scale. And unfortunately, but most businesses, a lot of them are franchise owners. So I found my people, right? Because they wear many hats and they're entrepreneurs. And even though they might own a franchise, they're still responsible for their own accountability, their own actions, building the grassroots efforts in their community, and building a business. So the advantage that franchising, I found, gave businesses is it gave a system that they could follow. So people didn't have to reinvent the wheel, and it gave them support. And so tell me a little bit about, for our listeners, and we've got listeners, we're live right now on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and a few other places, but share with me, who's your ideal customer now? Who comes to FranServe, and who do you serve?
Yeah, we actually have two main, well, probably three main customers, if you will, right? Because the first one is the person who wants to be a business owner, but doesn't really know what path they want to go down typically, right? They want to own a franchise. they don't realize that there's more than food, right? Most people still think that the only franchises are food, right?
It's just like they think that every speaker is a motivational speaker.
So true. So they work with our franchise consultants, right? So it's the person who's looking to become a franchise owner. They don't know about funding. They don't know the process. They don't understand the maze. And our franchise consultants kind of work as an advisor and help them to go down that maze so that they don't get overwhelmed. That's the thing we see the most when people start doing it on their own. They're excited, they start going down the path, and then it gets confusing and they don't know what to do. So that's what they do. They do nothing. And then that dream dies. So that's one of the things that when I was a consultant and we teach our consultants is to help the people realize that dream by guiding them through those moments of I don't know where to go. How do I get funding? Can I get funding? All those questions that come up. So that's what a consultant does. And that's our prime area of business. That's why we get up in the morning, right? Every day is to help our candidates. The second one that I look for is to always bring on more consultants just like me. Yep. Sometimes people want to stay self-employed or they want to be involved in the franchise. They don't want to own a franchise business. They don't want that commitment or the territory or whatever it may be. There's a lot of flexibility in franchise consultants. So that's another area. And then I would say our final area that we work with our clients, of course, is all the brands, bringing in brands. We have over 800 brands in our portfolio. So we're always looking to help emerging and established brands to grow.
Well, I think it's so important. I mean, one of the lessons I learned a long time ago is you can either learn from your own experience or from other people's experience. And the advantage of going to FranServe is that they can learn from your experience because you guys have made so many matches between different businesses and helped, entrepreneurs of all levels find their perfect match, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I will tell you that, and everybody's a little different, right? There are people who just want to, have one unit and one franchise, and that's real fine. And then you have people who want to be more empire builders, right? Who have business experience. Sometimes they want to start with 5 or 6 units. So it reaches the gamut. And I will tell you, it's one of the good things about being a consultant is you never know what's going to happen when that phone rings. You never know who's on the other side and what that opportunity is going to lead to. We've worked with some sports celebrities. You just don't know. Right. Everybody's always interested in business ownership. So I will say every day is different and every candidate is different, right? Different stories. Some people come in because they do want to leave corporate America. Some people come in because they want to create generational wealth for their future generations, their kids, their grandkids. And of course, franchising is a wonderful way to do that, right? Throughout their legacy. So that people come in for different reasons.
So in the introduction, we talked a little bit about this new book you have, the Pink Tsunami. So share with our listeners a little bit about who's the book for and why should people buy it?
Yeah, so this is interesting. I've been in franchising now for going on 11 years, and it's much better now. But when I first came in, there just really wasn't a lot of women. They're still not in comparison to the ratio of men, but it's better. But, I really believe well-behaved women never really make history. So I like to punch down doors and open up opportunities. So last year I woke up and it's one of those things. I just woke up and no intentions the day before. But I woke up and I told my husband I'm going to write a book and I know the name and I know what it's going to be about.
Fantastic.
And a year later, it came into fruition. So it's really about helping women understand all the different opportunities in franchising. Because sometimes being a franchise owner, a franchisee, is a great, great way, but not everybody's cut out to be a business owner. But that doesn't mean you can't be in franchising. So what I want to do is to help women understand that all paths can lead to franchising. If you're an attorney, you can be a franchise attorney. If you are good at sales, you can be in fran development. If you're good at operations, there's a place for you in franchising. If you like education and teaching, you can be a trainer in franchising. There's many, many, many roads that are involved in franchising. And there's no book out there that explores that. There's a lot of wonderful books on how to own a franchise, how to select a franchise, how to sell your franchise business, but not all the different opportunities. And when I started, I do a lot of speaking, and when I started talking to women, they were all excited about the community, about the franchise space, but they were like, yeah, business ownership, it's just not. And I was like, there's plenty of other opportunities for you to explore in franchising. So that's what I really wanted to do with this book. I wanted to show the plethora of ways that people can enter franchising. So I had, it's over 30 people that I had contribute to this, women and men, who talk about the power of women in franchising and what a difference it's made in all the different sectors. So it's been a tremendous, tremendous experience for me. It just came out maybe a month ago. I had Catherine Munson, who, of course, is the CEO of Propelled Brands, do my foreword, which was a huge honor for me. She is definitely my mentor and inspiration. And so I've just been very blessed with the people who have supported me, including the International Franchise Association. Had Matt Heller, of course, who's the CEO of the IFAs, contribute. So I've just been very blessed with the amount of support that I've had in franchising. So that's the synopsis of that book.
Well, congratulations. And for those of you listening, this audio or the audio track from this live broadcast also becomes the Business Growth Show podcast. So if you're listening to this, or if you joined late, this is Alesia Visconti, and she's the president and CEO of FranServe. You can check her out online at FranServe, francserve.com. And certainly you can get her book, The Pink Tsunami, Women's Rise in Franchising. Check it out at your favorite retailer. Now, do you have an audiobook of it, or is it just the print, paperback and hardback?
It's paperback and Kindle right now. I am working on the audiobook, but what I want to do, of course, because I never do anything normal, is instead of it just being one, I want my contributors to have their own voice. So I'm working with that. Cool. Yeah. So we'll have a whole bunch of different, like, telling their own story. I didn't want to do it myself, and I didn't want to have one professional just doing it all. I want my contributors to have their own voice.
Well, I found out too with the books that I have. I've got several behind me. The first time I did it, I used an AI voice, actually, so you can use AI now to convert it. But it's all right, but it's not where it needs to be. And then I realized that with an audiobook, you really have the freedom to add more in. So my audiobooks, even though they do follow the print version, they do have extra bonus content and things that I didn't add into the book at the first round. So that makes a lot of sense. Where do you see the future of franchising going? What do you see, or I would say, what do you see are the biggest challenges in building a franchise going forward in today's world that we live in?
I will be honest with you. I get asked this question all the time, right? Because it's a natural question to ask. And I think the challenges are your own mindset. Yeah. I think that the franchisees and the franchisors who are nervous about technology and don't understand AI and don't understand that it's not, a harmful thing, it's a good thing. I think those are the challenges. And I get it, right? Anything new can feel threatening, or it can feel like I don't want to do make the investment, or I don't understand it, so we'll just ignore it. And that'll work for a very short period of time. And then, you either get on that rocket ship or you're left behind. But I think that's the challenge, because I'll be honest with you, I think franchising is going to just explode. I mean, I know it's been around over 30 years. I feel like we're in our teenage years in terms of what we've learned and what we can accomplish, because I don't think there's enough people who truly understand. A lot of people don't even understand franchising is small business. They think it's these big business, these big conglomerates, not realizing that every unit is owned, by an individual person or a family. So I think there's a lot of education to come along with franchising. I think it's gotten much more affordable, right? And that will continue to increase as technology helps us, smaller footprints, easier to get financing on something like that, fewer staff needed, so your payroll's less, so more people can afford to own a franchising than years ago. You used to need $1 million
Right,
to own
right.
a franchise, no
And,
more.
and there's so many different models, right? I mean, like you said, you represent 800 brands, and there's thousands of others. And what makes a great franchise, it really is a great match on the personality, what they want, the territory. There's so many factors, and that's one of the great things that FranServe does is it helps the new candidate really understand the road and gives them a roadmap to where they can, they're making their own decisions, but they're saving a lot of time and frustration making the mistakes, right?
Well, you love it because they'll come in and say, I'm interested in blah, blah food brand, right? And then you're saying, okay, well, let's talk. Well, I don't want to work weekends and I don't want to work nights. And
right.
And I say, well, food's not your choice.
Yeah, exactly. Are you going to be an operator owner?
Weekends, I don't know how you're going to serve anybody, right? What are they eating? I don't know. So yeah, you have to explore what they're really, looking for. And a lot of times they honestly don't know. It's just their cousin Susie said this was a good brand, or,
right.
They drove past it. They like the colors, So you have to explore. And the really great thing for the candidates is there's no cost to use our consultants. Our consultants are paid like a recruiter from the brands. So there's no cost and there's no extra cost in owning the franchise. It's exactly the same whether you go through a consultant or whether you go direct. So the extra help is free to the candidate, and it just helps them to open their mind and as you said, kind of zoom in on the things that are really important to them.
Yeah, well, I know when it comes to business growth, I've found in working with brands big and small around the globe, inside and outside franchising, that, while people think that the challenges they have are unique to them, I've found that growth really comes down to one of three areas, sometimes two. One, it's their mindset, just like you mentioned. If they don't have the right mindset dialed in, all the strategies and tactics and the systems in the world won't help them. So the mindset. And then after that, you go to strategies. Well, one of the great things about franchising is it is a system. It's got the tools. They've already figured out what works, what doesn't, and they've given a duplicatable system that people can leverage. And then it comes down to tactics. How are they going to execute? Like you said, are they going to be an owner-operator or an operator-owner? Are they going to be a single unit owner, a multi-unit owner, a single brand owner, multi-brand owner? But I always say, in all these interviews I've done with corporate executives in franchising and in the franchise, suppliers and community is, what comes up all the time is someone who's coachable, someone who's open-minded, someone who is takes personal accountability for their own success, and someone who's proactive. And if you're open-minded, coachable, critical thinker, proactive, you'll be successful in any business, but the franchising gives you that extra leg up because it gives you a system to follow. And when I go and I do opening keynotes for a lot of conferences. In fact, I'll be going to fly out in the morning to an event in Cancun, and there's going to be 600 franchise owners. And, whenever I interview them ahead of time, I always ask them what the biggest challenge is. And it's interesting because the franchisees will say, well, I just want the franchisor to do more. I see more advertising for all the competition, but I don't see anything for us. And I don't know why they're just not doing more national advertising. And this brand might have, 600 units. Well, that's a lot of units, but still that's not thousands. And so, you have to look at the advertising doesn't make sense. And then the franchisees like, look, we've given this great system. We have an online learning system. We have a university. We have 50% open rates on our weekly emails that go out to help them. We get 25% on our monthly Zoom calls where people can come in, the franchise. So they have tools, but they're not using them. So the mindset, the strategies and tactics for any business. And so those of you listening still, it doesn't matter what business you're in, you got to take personal accountability for your own success. What do you do with a candidate that comes in and no matter what advice you give them, they're diverting it to something else? I'm just curious. So you offer something and then they say, no, that won't work. And they tell you what won't work, but they haven't really evaluated it.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, well, first of all, we do tell some candidates that they're probably not cut out for franchising.
Yep.
Because while you want to be an entrepreneur, Ford, you just said it, you have to follow the system. If you think you're going to come in and make all these changes and you think you can do it better, that's not following the system. Most franchisors will want to hear new ideas, don't misunderstand me, but you do have to follow the system that every other franchisee is going to as well. So there are some people, I'm one of them, being honest, that would never make a good franchisee. And people like this exist, right? We just don't want to follow the system. We don't do well with that, right? And that's me, and I know it. That's why owning franchise, FranServe rather, works for me, because I accept the system. So you have to know yourself. So we do turn people down. We also try to help them understand and come to the realization that maybe either they're overthinking, right? Sometimes, too many choices
Right.
make you change your mind, right? Or what's the real obstacle? Because it's usually fear. When we've shown somebody, 6, 7, 8 brands, and they don't want to talk to any of them, they can find fault in all of them. Then we have to dive down a little bit. What's really going on? What's happening because fear is the thing that blocks people from moving forward. It's not typically money, which is what most people think. They can get the money, but they have to walk through that door. They have to take that first step. And a franchisor, as like us, we can teach all of it. We can teach every step along the way. What we can't teach is your own motivation,
Yep.
your own work ethic. That has to come in. So that's what sometimes we have to hold the mirror up with some tough love, for lack of a better word, to the candidate, because that's not going to be good for the franchisor. It's not going to be good for this candidate, and it's not going to be good for the franchise consultant, for the FranServe consultant, because you're trying to, force the round peg into the square hole. So I think that's what happens, right? You have to come to a reality of, is this the step you want to do?
Well, it's very powerful advice in this episode, because it's just like hiring an employee. You want to train them to standard. I always say, hire for attitude, train for skills, right? If they have the right attitude, they can get there. And you mentioned fear, and it's so prevalent, because when I do a sales training, and the biggest thing salespeople will say is, well, there's increased competition. I don't know why we just can't offer discounts. And it's like, okay, so let me get this straight. Your main tactic is to lower your price. Like, that's not going to be the best thing to do, right? And so those fears, and I help people see how to overcome them. And the 4 basic fears when it comes to sales, even in what you're doing, is, they have fear of work. Okay, if I do this, it's going to be a lot of work. If I get a franchise, it's going to be a lot of work. They have fear of conflict. Well, if I start this business, it's going to cause conflict with my family or my spouse or other people. So they have fear of conflict. They have fear of change, right? Owning a franchise is a lot of change. There's a lot of different hats that they have to learn, and they have to hire their weaknesses, right? And then they have fear of failure. What happens if they do this and it doesn't work? And so, in sales, and in your business and my business, whether it's me as a keynote speaker or you as a franchise consultant, it's the same thing. You have to preempt those fears. And sometimes it's not a good fit. I mean, I was just on a coaching call with a prospect this morning, and I have high-end coaching packages, and, it just wasn't a really good fit. I could just tell. They were coachable and everything, but I could just tell from where they were at. And so I gave them some great advice and said, hey, here's how you could come back. But every sale's not a good sale. And sometimes it's best to not do it than to try to make the sale. And I think that's what's made, FranServe so reputable in the industry and representing the brands that you represent, is because you really do take the time to match the right opportunity and find candidates and navigate them through them. And it's just like the speakers bureaus. Like speakers bureaus represent speakers. It doesn't cost the brand any more to use a speakers bureau. So I'm like the brand, and the bureau is like you. And so I'd be like a franchise, and it's the same model. And I think that once that candidate understands that they're not paying extra to use you, so those of you listening, if you're even thinking about franchising, or maybe you've been, somebody, I highly recommend you reach out to FranServe. They've got some great resources. They've got great coaches and consultants that can help you identify if it's right for you, and then if so, how to find the best franchise.
I appreciate that, Ford, and the things that you said. I mean, I think it comes down really to, our first core value is integrity is everything. That we only have 4, but that's our first one, and that's really what we abide by. So sometimes, as you said, the best thing to do for everybody is to turn someone down, whether it's a candidate or a brand that we don't think will fit with our portfolio, or because, in the end, we all, our culture is we want to leave people better off than how we found them, right? So you have to be intuitive, and you have to listen. And I think people in the franchise space as a whole tend to do that because we attract different mindsets, right? We attract great thinkers and creative minds that want to do something a little different than the normal, go to school, get a job, 9 to 5, retire and die. So we attract different ones. And I think sometimes playing with that mindset really helps them to explore what is the best path. And I grew up, my very first career job was as a life and career coach. So that stays with me, and it's felt in our culture with our consultants. So yes, I think it's great what you just said. Same thing with coaching someone, or like you said, with your speaking. You have to find the right fit, the right balance, and then it's a win-win. And that's really what life should be about.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us today. Any closing thoughts for our listeners?
Take the first step, man. Just take it. No one can make you do that except you, right? So to those in the audience who aren't sure, if you explore it and it's not right for you, that's fine. But we have to remember that on our tombstones, it's just that little dash, right? It's 2 dates and a dash. And what are you doing with it? And I really will tell you that people who come into franchising, whether as a consultant, whether as a candidate, the thing we hear over and over again is, geez, I wish I had done this sooner.
Well,
so what does that tell you, right? What does that tell you? So do it. Go be fantastic and take the first step.
I think that's pretty good. Fantastic. Well, all right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Fortify Live, where we're all about accelerating your business growth. Until next time, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep fortifying your success.
Thank you for tuning in to Fortify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never stop growing.